Well, before we get to our business update, as usual, I want to introduce our guest speaker for today. Um, we have the honor and opportunity to speak to award-winning photographer Kimberly Butler. Kimberly has photographed hundreds of celebrities and world leaders, including 5 U.S. presidents. Her credits include the cover of New York Times bestseller and gallery shoots for major broadcast networks. She's a regular contributor to People magazine for decades. She's traveled the world extensively in the Middle East, in the former Soviet Union, as a photojournalist, documenting. She's done documentaries in Jordan, Jerusalem, Gaza, Chechnya. And for the past 2 decades, she's been a force behind the American Library Association of Celebrity Reads poster series. So we'll be showing some of her work today. She's also a native and resident of Manhattan. So if anyone has any questions for her about what it was like to be in New York City, we might have some time at the end to talk about that. But Kimberly, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. You'll probably need to unmute. Let's see, let me find you. Down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a little microphone with a line through it. There you go.
Yeah, I'm getting very good at this. I'm proud of myself.
Hi, Kimberly. Welcome today. Let me pull up your PowerPoint.
How's everybody this morning?
You'll get some comments there. Yeah, everyone's kind of on mute, but I'll introduce your 12 moments of thought. And let me just preface by saying that, when Kimberly and I met, we met through LinkedIn and had a wonderful conversation about her experiences around the world. And in looking through some of her photography, just found wonderful imagery of life, and assembled this presentation to show some of her artwork, but also take us through a journey of what it's kind of been like with COVID. And so, Kimberly, I'll kick it off. Maybe you can talk about each photo and how it relates to COVID. I know we're limited on time, so we'll do our best to keep it moving.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting about this is that Michelle went through, what I'd like everybody to do is to go to my website, which is kimberlybutler.com, and you'll see all these images in different books that I've done. And she picked one related to COVID now. And it's very true. Now, this is from a book called Censored, where I took books that had been censored, and this is Lord of the Rings. And of course, it says nothing is evil in the beginning. And I think that that's the way it started for a lot of New Yorkers. Oh, it's just the flu. It's nothing, it'll pass. And, this is kind of the way it was presented by most of our national leaders. But unfortunately, New York had millions of people coming in by flights. And before you knew it, we were the hotbed of the world. And, we were all like babies. We had no idea what to do, but we had a great governor who just said, we're shutting everything down, and we did. This is from my book, The Art of Fear. And it reminds me, in the book, I'm trying to go home again, and I'm masked. And this is what life became like. Everything was shut down. New York was empty. And we're all wearing masks, and you wouldn't see anybody. And in the context of the book, it works that way, but it also works in context of COVID, because that's how it felt, very lonely. A lot of people left New York, and the people who left were the rich people who had houses in other places. So what you were left with was the middle class in Manhattan, and of course the poorer people. But we all worked together to feed the poor and make sure everybody got COVID tested, and we really worked together. We're a little island. That's what people don't realize about Manhattan. We are a little island. This is in the Jordanian refugee camp for the Syrian refugees. This lady is sitting, waiting for the UN water truck to come and deliver the water. Meanwhile, everybody in Manhattan was running to every single drugstore getting cases of water. So it was the same thing. We were wondering where our food and water were going to come through. Were we going to be, was our water going to go down? Was our food supplies going to go down? We had no idea. So people started hoarding at the beginning. And then our governor was like, it's going to be all right. We're going to keep food. And then I would watch this lady sit in the shade and wait for the UN truck to come in, because these people would come in off the desert with just water and their children, trying to get away from Syria and into Jordan, where the king let 2 or 3 million people in. Now, this is a comedian. Her name is Margaret Cho, and she's a piece of work. And she has a jail in her bedroom. Don't ask me why, or living room. And just as a goof, I said to her, get in the jail. And now, though, this is pretty much how we feel. I'm now 5 months at home, and I have an apartment and a studio that are connected. So luckily, I've been able to work on some projects, but mentally, it's starting to get to me now. I'm not able to hang out with my friends. We're not able to go to the beach and all hang out and play volleyball or do any of those things. And when we do, the governor and the mayor gives us all tickets for like $2,000. They're not messing around, because we've stopped COVID in New York and they want to keep it that way. So this is kind of how I feel. This is back in the Syrian refugee camp, and the children just run around with no place to go. And that's kind of like our children here now. We started sending them to camp and they got COVID. So now we're like, are we going to send them to school? We don't know what to do. We're so packed in New York. We don't have open spaces for our children. So now we're in a big thing. Do we send them? Do we not? Israel sent all their kids back to school and they're in a mess. Everybody got COVID again. So this reminded me very much. These children have nothing to do. They just run around all day, because now they're starting schools and they have a hospital, but they started from scratch here. So we have a lot to learn from them, actually. This is Ice Cube from my Read series. I've done about 200 of these. I always like giving back, because I have a very tough life. I was out of an orphanage, and literacy became my thing. So Ice Cube is reading a book on Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali I photographed about 5 times, and a lot of us have turned back to reading during COVID, that I think is a very positive thing. I've done about 200 of these over my career, so I feel that I've given a lot to encourage to pick up a book, any kind of book. And there's a lot more reading now that's been going up. Reading is way up. And this is a little guy. I asked him to live long and prosper, at a Star Trek. And, he just, in the eyes, you can see they have nothing but each other. And really, that's all that counted, because their homes were bombed. They have nothing, just a UN tent, water, food is supplied. And, that's it. They have nothing to go back to. And that tells us a lot about how to survive. We don't have any problems at all. If we just hunker down and wear our masks, like your CEO is talking about, we're going to be okay. Okay, this is David Blaine, who's a magician. Yes, he's hanging off an 8th floor fire escape, and I'm hanging off the other end to get this shot, because he always does these crazy things. And it says, take risks. And this is what I've done during this time. I think it's a great time for us to evaluate what we're doing, because I don't think we're going to go back to the way things were. And I know New York's not. I think we're going to take a lot of our retail spaces and make them living spaces. And I think we're going to go green, like a lot of Europe, especially the Scandinavian countries, like make buildings and they're all green to purify the air, to have deliveries at night. We're going to take risks, and we're going to do things differently that'll better our society. So it's an exciting time if we can look at it positively. And people working from home, whoever wants to, people that want to come to work, it'll keep that big crowds at 5 o'clock, take that down. So, the things you've always wanted to try, now you can try it. you know, and I actually did Alice in Opioid Land while I was stuck in this apartment, as you know, talking about, you know, all the opioid addiction in America. I did it on a template of Alice in Wonderland, and you can see that on my site too. See the whole thing. So I didn't go nuts. I had to give myself something to do and pray. I do it every day, whatever it means to you. When I go to bed, I think positively about what the next day is going to bring. You know, happiness, and it's going to be positive. Of course, this is George Lopez, and you know, we had a photo shoot together, and we were talking about spirituality, and you know, whatever that means to you, but to keep a positive framework of mind. And if we get low, we call each other. I actually have a friend, we watch movies together on the phone. So we watched The Godfather last weekend, and we're doing the lines before the guys say it. Anything to keep that human connection, because a lot of us are alone. Some of us are with families, but a lot of people are alone. And, you know, and keeping a good attitude. This is Keira Knightley on the sets of Pirates of the Caribbean, the last movie. And, you know, just keeping a positive attitude, which at times can be very hard. So stay away from negative people, because they can bring you right down. Stay positive, because this too shall pass. It will pass. We had a pandemic during the First World War, and it was much worse than this. And play. I don't know if you can see Yo-Yo Ma there, but he's playing Petunia, his cello, like a guitar for me. And, you know, he's getting down and he's having a lot of fun. And this was at the Boston Pops. And just have a good time, you know, as best as you can. And actually, I started learning to play guitar while I've been stuck. And then I got myself an electric guitar about a week after I had the acoustic one. So I could learn how to be really loud and have a lot of fun. So, you know, not lose that child within. But, you know, really, I'm about 5 years old inside. And I like that. I like being a kid, because I never lose my enthusiasm for life, which is very important. And this show Joy, this is Ayana Van Zant. Like, Ayana, fix my life. You know her? Fix my life, fix my life. So I photographed her, and right after this, she went through a battle with a couple of different things, and she's found her joy again, and it just emanates. And, you know, you can find joy everywhere. You know, helping other people. We deliver food to the elderly. We'll put up on Facebook, you know, who's hungry? You don't have to give us any information. Just give us an address and an apartment number, and you won't even know we're there. We'll drop off a bag of food. No shame. No, don't worry about it. Just do it. And we drop off food. And when you do that, and you're able to do that, and I'm able to do that with the little bit of money I got in the bank, somebody's hungry, you know, uptown, just joy in my heart that I can help somebody. So there's a lot of way to have joy and to find joy while we get through this as a country. And we will get through it.
And Kimberly, thank you. I mean, your imagery is such a beautiful display of life, as we mentioned. And if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about Kimberly, you can check out her website at kimberlybutler.com. Highly recommend taking a look. She's just published a brand new book in the last couple of weeks. It's regarding the opioid epidemic, and it's quite moving. And we thank you for being here today. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions for Kimberly. If you want to know what it was like to be in New York City.
Somebody ask a question.
Let's see. I'm looking through here to see if there's anything in here. What happened, Kimberly, when New York was shut down? Describe the scene.
Well, it happened very suddenly over a couple days. You know, first we had heard about Italy, and but it had emanated out of China, which we've had a couple of instances now, the world, with stuff coming out of China because of these wet markets. And what we also found out is there are 80 wet markets operating in New York City, and none of us are happy about that. So within a couple of days, we locked down completely. Everybody put masks on, everybody got food, got water, and all of a sudden the city was empty. Everybody who decided to leave left, and then the governor shut everything down. So you had 3 days to get home from Europe. You had, wherever you were in the world, you had 3 days to get home. So people unfortunately were stuck out of the country. And now nobody from America is allowed anywhere out of the country. I can't go to Scotland, with my family. I can't go anywhere. So it was surreal seeing the streets of New York completely empty, completely.
And
And then the
and
crime starts.
that yeah, you've mentioned that there's a lot of concern about the crime, and when we were talking, you mentioned you get COVID tested regularly.
Yes, yes. We can go right to any one of our city MDs. They're open and they'll test us. And there's a great sense of camaraderie in New York. New Yorkers are a very different group than other people. We're like, we're one of the original colonial states, and my family's been here since 1630. And downtown New York is all the original revolutionary buildings. So there's a very big sense of the beginning of America in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. And as this happened, our governor and those governors stuck together and started closing the borders. So people couldn't come to our beaches and bring COVID back after we got rid of it. Because
Yeah, that's
we were number one in the world, Manhattan,
yeah.
number one in the
Well,
world.
for COVID, right?
Yes, number one in the world
Yeah.
for COVID. You'd look at a world map and Manhattan was beeping like a red light. And we were like, oh my God, we were afraid to talk to our neighbors. You would leave stuff outside your neighbor's house. They would leave the bag with gloves, we wash all our groceries in soap and water. The boxes, Amazon workers were getting sick. I mean,
Yeah.
it
There's a
was
couple of questions from the group. What was it like, or were you able to hear when people were banging the pots and pans for the first
Oh, that was
responders?
great. Yes, yes. Every night at 7 o'clock, and what they would also put it on our local news. Every night at 7 o'clock, they banged on their pots and pans for our first responders, because the nurses and the doctors were so overwhelmed, and the fire departments would pull up to the hospitals and they would cheer each other's. And I have 4 nephews in the fire department, and they would cheer each other. And what we owe our first nurses and doctors, I mean, they were sitting crying on the sidewalks outside of the hospital, having breakdowns. And we had people, unfortunately, in refrigerated trucks because we had no place to. And people would not believe us. We were saying, we need help, and we need help. We have nowhere to put the dead. And they thought that we were kidding.
Wow. Well, someone asked, what was the moment, was being from the city, there's a lot of smells and sounds, and what did the change remind you of, or how did that change? Did it smell different? Did it sound different during this time?
It got very quiet, like right after 9/11.
Was it scary for people?
Oh, it's horrifying. You're terrified because you don't. Well, that this is like war, because it's a silent killer, but it's war, and you've got to wear your mask. You've got to follow these directives, and they're having parties and stuff in the Hamptons and other places in New York, and the governor is fining everybody because you're going against the rule for the common good. And
Wow.
he's not playing around. I've been in my house for 5 months. I'm ready to dump like those big, helicopter water things they use for forest fires. I want to drop that on the party to put, to get them separated, because
Well, and
they're
to
not listening.
they're not listening. Well, to switch gears just a little bit, someone had
Mhm,
asked of your photography experience, was
mhm.
there a moment in your career, that what was the most inspiring moment? Was it a person or something that really moved you?
Moved me in what way?
Um, well, that's a great question. Like a moment that is your most memorable moment, one of your most memorable photographic moments. Maybe it was a
Okay.
person or a place.
I think when I'm in the refugee camps, I was in Russia right after the Berlin Wall came down. Um, the Russians opened Russia to let people leave. So I was working in conjunction with the Israeli government to get a lot of the elderly people out and bring them to Israel, to get everybody out because they were living in such terrible poverty in Russia. But I mean, like Russia's 11 time zones. So you're in the middle of nowhere. So I would see an 80-year-old woman who had walked a mile to get 2 buckets of water to drink. And you just look at them and you just say, oh, I'm never going to complain again because I have to go to Duane Reade to get a case of water. We don't realize how great we have it as Americans. We're so fortunate. And I think the thing that makes us great as Americans is that we're all mutts. We're all people that have come from all over the world and have joined together to make America, And I think that that's the beauty of it. So when I see the terrible suffering in other countries where they've maintained either, that they've got dictators, where they're trying to keep it, as one people. Russia's a great example. Or any of these Middle Eastern countries, they keep it as one people, if they allow them to have religion, one thing. It's bad because you don't have people mixing and sharing. And, I can right now say, come on, everybody, let's go have Tibetan food. And there's a Tibetan restaurant on 3rd Avenue. We have everything.
Right.
And
We're very, very blessed
we are.
as to be
We are.
in America today. And
Mhm.
we are close on time. So I do want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I put your website in the chat box so people could click and take a look. And we'll be in touch. Obviously, love to stay connected with you, Kimberly. You're an
Yes.
amazing person, and
Thank you.
hopefully we'll meet again someday in person.
I'd like that. I'd like to come to Austin. And Amit, very, very, very nice about the letters that you got from people and the way you're running your company. I can see how it's very difficult in these times with, people being afraid, getting sick, plastic shields, everybody wearing their masks and everything. To be a boss is not an easy thing now. And I know that for all of you guys to, whether you're working at home or you're working in the office, if you just wash your hands, you just wear your mask, 9 million of us did it like in the space of one of your football stadiums in Austin. If we can do it, you guys can do it. If you have a great boss, he's on the money.
Kimberly, it's
Miss,
so nice to hear you. So nice to hear this morning. And it's so good to know also that how in New York, people really handle the COVID. Sometimes we think that we are in the worst shape actually, but a lot of people who really handled it in spite of all the fear. And actually the way New York handled it, it's example for a lot of other cities. So thank you for sharing everything.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And there's nothing to fear. Listen, just a quick thing, very, very quick. My ancestors, my grandparents and my aunts, they went through World War I, okay, and World War II. So you imagine that you've got the flu and you're fighting the Germans in trenches, okay? And the flu, it killed 50 million people. And you're in war. This is nothing. All you got to do is wear your mask and wash your hands and have social distancing. That's all. We're going to be just fine.
thank you, Kimberly, so much.
You're
Well, we're going to
welcome.
continue with our call. You have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too. Thanks so much for stopping by. God
Thank you.
bless you. You're a great boss. God bless everyone. Stay safe.